blood satellite.
You made a good point about the mainstream, about like I understand, like when I was saying that we're under attack all the time. When I say that, I usually mean like white people, frankly. But then there's also, you could make the argument for like a lot of political fascists, anarchists, whatever the fuck. But you know, it's like to feel under attack. And so I think there's a lot of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because we hate the mainstream because the mainstream is attacking us. So we attack the concept of the mainstream. But no, if we're living in a culture that's working and all pistons are firing correctly, there should be a mainstream, and the mainstream would be good. And this is kind of what I talk about with journalism. Like I hate journalists. I think there's nothing worse in the world than a journalist. But I'm like, the concept of journalism, as corrupt as it may be, even if it's propaganda, let's say it's propaganda, because it usually is, it should be propaganda for something we like. And that's actually how you reinforce society. And I had this talk the other day about advertising, because especially on the right, there's a lot of anti-capitalist people on the right, and they should be, sure. And they talk about how advertising and marketing is corrupting society. And it's easy to think that because it's being used as a weapon against you. But I don't know if we talked about this before, but what we kind of did talk about when I said one of the funniest memes that I had saw, which is basically, you know, the return to tradition, look what they stole from you. And it's just a barbecue ad, right? Yeah. And it's like, but that's the point, because advertising itself, sure, it's propaganda, whatever, but it's actually endorsing a lifestyle and a type of society that is good, that you like. So you could say that, because here's the thing. This is how the talk started with someone. They were saying that there is such a thing as corporate ideology, and corporate ideology is the woke ideology. And it's easy to think that. I get why you would, because that's what they're doing. But I said, and I'm not trying to go for the whole, you know, Milton Friedman thing, like, oh, all businesses are just interested in profits. Yes and no. The way businesses typically market and advertise, especially if they're the big ones, is they don't sell ideologies. What they sell is a lifestyle. So, and this is across, let's say, just the 20th century of advertising, 20th century up until now. They don't really go for ideology, they go for lifestyle. However, that gets masked when the lifestyle is activism. So, and you see this with the youth. And I think we talked about this when we talked about boomers. I think boomers were one of the first generations, maybe in human history, that were directly advertised to as children, right? That was a kind of a new concept. But, you know, this idea that advertising, as long as it's advertising something that is good, it is good. You know what I mean? Like right. A lifestyle, a wholesome family sort of thing. And with boomers, the idea of youth advertising really kind of got going in like 70s, 80s, and 90s, where you're advertising to teenagers. This group evolved over time. And what do young people, teenagers, I'm not going to say across human history, but at least in the Western world, and at least in the 20th century, the youth was always aligned with rebellion. And so if you're advertising to the youth, their lifestyle is activism. And the mistake you make is by saying the youth is ideological. They're not. They're dumb. But what they love is, you know, they're not actually political activists, but they love the band Rage Against the Machine, which is corporate approved, you know, revolutionary politics. You see what I'm saying? Like activism for them is a lifestyle. So the corporation, they are selling a lifestyle. At one point, that lifestyle was have a family, 2 cars, a certain idea of wealth, a certain idea of wholesomeness. Now it's shifted. It's become, like we say when Spengler talks about, and a lot of these people talk about, when a civilization is dying, ideals don't get destroyed, they get inverted. So we've taken advertising, it's become inverted. But at every point in human history, you need propaganda to encourage. That's what patriotism is. Patriotism and loving your nation, loving whatever, it's just constantly reinforcing it visually, rhetorically, in the news and wherever. That's what advertising is. And, you know, it's got a very hyper-capitalist bent to it. But the idea was, at a certain point, if advertising is completely in line with the culture you want it to be, it will endorse that culture and everything will be fine. And if you went back in the day and asked these people what they think about advertising, they'd say the same thing. It sucks. Who cares? Ads, whatever. Doesn't work on me, but it actually does. And that's why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It does, and it's important to point out it does, even if you don't buy anything, it's still working on you.
So that's why I try and say to people, like, don't look at just as product, but it's also they're trying to sell you a product that is in line with the lifestyle they believe their target demographic lives. And for young people, it's activism. This is why corporate wokeness seems so hollow. Even the leftists remark on this from time to time. They like that they're kind of winning on this field right now, but they'll remark on this that it seems so hollow and corporate, and that's why when they do, here's the way to
Yeah.
look at it. Nike doesn't like Black Lives Matter. Nike did not invent Black Lives Matter. What they like is young black guys, and young black guys like Black Lives Matter, so they put it on a shoe. Now from a distance that looks like, oh my god, these corporations are so ideological. Like, no, they're actually, they just read the fucking news. It's not even that hard. It turns out these people are actually very easy to trick. That's the sad thing. However, the idea of like attacking advertising, and this will sound biased because I work in advertising, but I'm like, you can look to a time when those advertisements were reinforcing a life and a society and maybe civilizational values that you like. And my
Yeah.
point is that was absolutely necessary to reinforce that lifestyle. And
Yeah.
that was soldiering you. And you could say, well, that lifestyle never existed. But the desire to want to live that lifestyle, to be married with 2 kids and a house and work a job, that was an aspiration. And from an aspirational standpoint, that is better for society. And if we look at what these lifestyles aspire
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, it's almost purely destruction.
Can
So
I?
that's
Can
kind of the
I?
idea. Sorry, continue.
No, no. I mean, look. I was gonna say I could go on for hours about this. I actually love the angle of advertising and marketing, the role that it plays in capitalist Western society. I think it's so underestimated. But I don't know how much of a tangent to go on. But I like the idea. I love the idea that advertising has a stabilizing role within society, and I agree with that completely. And I think fuck, I'm trying to get my thoughts together here. Like if you go backwards, right? Let's think about a somebody that you would hate as a historic advertiser. Think about a snake oil salesman, right? Think about a snake oil salesman in the Wild West going around town to town and taking people's money and giving them fucking poison. But how does he get them? How does he get those people to buy the poison? It's because he knows that there's something that they need. So even in the worst of these advertisers, the worst ones, the ones that are true villains, even they have to spend hours before they go out in the field figuring out what it is that the average person in their community wants and needs. What are the issues? In some sense, even the worst of advertisers are more socially aware about the ills of their own society than a politician.
Yeah,
And
here's a
I
way to
think,
look at it.
yeah,
Every society gets the liars it deserves.
yeah,
So what we hate about snake oil salesmen is they're liars, of course. But you can learn a lot about your society, your civilization, your community by the lies they tell that work on you. And I would apply this to anything in our political sphere. There's liars, there's grifters. Like we had said, if you don't have any sort of praxeological thing, if you're just the type of person who talks online and makes videos and get popular, there is no fundamental difference between you and a grifter. There's no way to tell the difference. So if you are a grifter, what is the grift that works on these communities? You'll
mm,
learn more about you than anything else. Sorry,
mhm,
continue.
mhm. There's another angle to it. Maybe not recently. Maybe this is kind of ironic, but like this kind of the things that people hate about advertising and marketing that they think are negative are slowly like, for example, people hate the idea of targeted marketing, right? But one way of describing targeted marketing, like through the internet, is that they're only showing you what you want, and they know what you want because they read your emails. Now, you don't like the fact that they read your emails, but you can't deny the fact that they know what you want. They are actually showing you what you want, and you just don't want to admit that.
Yeah,
But I mean, the interesting thing, the problem with that is they're no longer stabilizing society because they're not showing you what society wants.
yeah,
They're not trying to generate demand. They're just figuring out what the demand actually is because they're capitalists and they just want to get your money, which is
yeah,
fine. Anyways, but if you look 50 years ago, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have this technology, so they were stabilizing. The way that they're stabilizing is they're saying we don't have social technology such that we can know what the people in our demographic want as individuals, but we can look in aggregate and we can generate a product that sells in aggregate. Now, how do we make sure the product sells? Well, we can look at what the aggregate demand is, and we can reflect that back at the viewer. Now, the viewer might not even be part of our target demographic, or they might be, but maybe they're an outlier within the demographic. But by having that outlier or that person who's a non-demographic individual exposed to this advertisement, exposed to this meme, right? Because it is a meme thing, then they actually come in line. So whether you like it or not, and this, it's a market reaction. It's a culturally stabilizing market reaction that's taking one firm's demand or one firm's desire to sell a product, and it is stabilizing, it's shepherding all of the people within that demographic into a certain structure of belief or desire, which is, I mean, it's just to put a pin on it, this is something that I wish, because the thing is, I'm way farther right and more racist and more angry and bitter than most right-wing libertarians, but I still consider myself a right-wing libertarian, and I wish that this was something that more people who call themselves right-wing libertarians would understand, which is that real right-wing libertarianism contains this. This is a core part of it, which is if you're operating within a normal market system, there is a cultural aspect to this, because people aren't rational economic instruments. We're not cogs in a machine. We're emotional creatures, and we have beliefs. And if you have a market system within a group of people that all have the same religion or culture or race, they will behave this way. And you will find that when these people generate advertisements and they generate sales revenue, they're doing it in a way that stabilizes the culture naturally. It's evolution. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
and
I love
also because advertising is not that creatively driven, despite the fact that they like to say that it is.
Amazing.
So it is very reactive to the culture. I was about to say,
yeah.
you say right wing libertarian, I say fascist monarchist. Let's call society off.
Let's call society off. I like that.
But another thing I wanted to get at is like this. A lot of people will listen to this and think, it's capitalist apologism, whatever. But it is true, and this is how people work. And this has been mentioned before. Like, we're not splitting the atom here. This is, if you read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, you'll find this in there. A lot of Adam Curtis stuff is going to talk on this too, about how, and the types of people who talk about mass media and propaganda and all the works out there. Sure. Our take is that it's not bad. The take for, even people who don't say they're liberals are working within the liberal paradigm of saying you're being propagandized to break the conditioning. I'm saying that there's certain conditioning that is good, and that's how a civilization runs.
Yeah.
And this is something I say people kind of understand this because, and this is something I'm kind of working through, but that's what memes are. Memes, visual graphical memes, are essentially advertisements for a lifestyle. And if you look at your average meme, it follows all of the conventional rules of making a good advertisement. It tends to be very image heavy. It's not text heavy at all. The successful memes aren't. And this is what leftists struggle with. Leftists haven't grasped on to this idea that to make a successful meme, it can't be so fucking wordy and lecturing. And the memes that work, this is why they hate Stonetoss so much. Because, Stonetoss, for the record, might be, if not in the top, just the top 3 political cartoonists of all time, possibly one in the top 3 cartoonists of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just his ability to communicate a message with either few words or 0 words. And that's very hard.
And that's what's so mimetic about it, is he's tapping. He's a fucking epidural cartoonist. Like, he's tapping into the fucking spinal cord, the zeitgeist of what people on our side are feeling right now. And like you said, he can do it in 2 frames and a speech bubble with 3 words. And his cartoons aren't even complex. They got 3 colors and they might have a couple of props. But within that, anybody who sees that, your fucking fingers tighten on the desk as your eyes look at it. Like, it's pure, man.
and again, if you can always tell something good visually, where if I'm in a room and I see it across the room in a crowd of people, I can look and say, I know that's Stonetoss. I know everything about that. And you're a better graphic designer and artist than I am. But, this in marketing and advertising, it's actually funny. We do the exact same thing. And this is when I talk to clients, is to try and teach them this. It's like to take a very, very complex idea and distill it down into its simplest form. It's very, very hard to do. And it takes a lot of steps. It's harder than people think. to take a very complex idea, and that's what kind of what a slogan is, but that's also
Yeah,
what a
yeah,
logo design is like this. You don't know the fucking insanity that goes into a logo design, trying to take like a brand personality and an idea and make it unique but also easily identifiable to capture that thing where if you're in a crowded bar and you see it across the room kind of fuzzy. I get that it's so it's singular,
yeah,
right? And I had this thing that I tell clients, and this is what I think the right kind of struggles with, because we're so obsessed with calling out propaganda that we don't make our own propaganda. We're actually better at it than the left. We have our people who make good cartoons and good work, and it's good on an artistic level. But there's also some stuff that is we're so obsessed with propaganda, we start making stuff that blatantly looks like propaganda and doesn't work. And the example I'll give is stuff like that, all that vaporwave stuff, like fashion. Anytime you get a right wing person and they're like, I need to brand myself. I'll tell you what's gonna fucking be. It's gonna look like vaporwave. It's gonna be a fucking neon palm tree. It's gonna be like a dumb fucking sunset with some Japanese letters over it. It's gonna be some synthy music over it. Like I see it time and time again. It's gonna be glitchy. There'll be some glitchy thing there. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
It's gonna be a fucking DeLorean driving. You know what I mean? Like that sort of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
vaporwave, fast wave, and then if you go into fast wave, it's like, oh, here's Michelangelo's David and a bunch of neon purple bullshit around it. And it's going to say, it'll be glitchy and it'll say return to tradition. And it's like, on the right, like I get it's so popular and I see it so much. It's like, has anyone ever tried to just make something good?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't try and make don't try and make right wing art. Be a right wing person and make art.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's is it propaganda or is it just branding? Like, because it's people on our side trying to gel with our side,
I think the
right?
message is very propagandistic because I saw this. There's two things I've seen. One worked and one didn't. On 4chan years ago, there was this line that perfectly encapsulates what I was trying to say, which is people just start posting, people are reading culture of critique.
Yeah,
And you'd see that everywhere. And that's all it was. It would just be thrown out there. And that, if you look at it, it has all of the components of a good line because it has social proof. People are reading. That's what it is. People are reading. People are doing this. I'm wondering, what is this? Because you've coded in these short words, you've coded in the social proof and that it matters. And then on the far right, you see people posting Read Siege, which is another way further right book that we might actually get into at some point because I want to see what all the fuss is about. But it misses that. It's just Read Siege, and that's their propaganda thing because they saw that and they think, oh, what it is simple and repetitive, and they're kind of
no,
right. The repetition does matter, but it's just
no.
Read
The
Siege, Read
social
Siege.
proof is the core part of it.
You know what it reminds me of? There's a scene from The Simpsons where I think it's where Homer joins the Navy. And he's like, we've mastered, and he's talking to like the Navy officers, like, we've mastered all the forms of propaganda, subliminal, liminal, and superliminal. He goes out the window and sees Lenny. He's like, hey, you, join the Navy. He's like, oh, okay. Like, that's what it is. It's superliminal propaganda. It's like, hey, do this, have 9 kids, grow potatoes. It's like, no, you don't. I get what you're trying to go for. Like, and these people, they're smart. They've read the stuff. They've done the research on propaganda. It's like, I'm going to make propaganda, but here's what you do. Here's what what a good advertisement is. Again, don't make right wing propaganda. Be right wing and make something good.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
nothing worse in marketing and advertising, and I've seen this time and time again. It's the person who wants to make a viral ad. And I dealt
yeah.
with this for fucking years. I can't tell you how many accounts managers and executives like, we need something that goes viral, and you don't get it. You don't get why something goes viral. There's ways to kind of game the system and tweak it, but you actually have to make something good. And so what they do is they chase controversy, which is cheap. Anyway, sorry, what everybody.
There's something else there, which is like in the context that we're talking about here is either philosophical or political or somewhere in between, right? That's the product. That's the thing that we're trying to communicate to the viewer. It's what we're trying to convince them of, what we're trying to get them to buy, I guess you could say. And this really is it's a marginal edge case of advertising. It's still within the realm of advertising and marketing, but you can't treat it like if you're trying to sell a brand of soap. You know what I mean? You're trying to sell a grill. It's not the same thing. And for me, anyways, because I'm not in advertising, but look at it this way: I am in business. and I pay for ads and I focus on ads and I have to figure my ads out. But not all my business comes from ads. A lot of my business comes from people who have visited their friend's house and they have my products in their house and they love them. And then they're like, "Where did you get that?" It's like, "Oh, I got it from Judas." And then they call me and then I give them my fucking products. And I think that we can call this acts, deeds, works, whatever you want to call it, right? Call it deeds. If you're talking about politics, you're talking about philosophy. Yeah, you can do advertising, you can do memes, but don't get so caught up in, like you were saying earlier about Sargon. Like, as much as you disagree with Sargon, Sargon's got deeds, man. Sargon's been to EU Parliament. He's been there shouting at people, and whether or not you like what he's saying, or I mean, like me, you think maybe he embarrassed himself. But the point is he put his fucking shoes on and he drove out there. So
He
I
got his
mean,
$75 suit on and he did it.
he did it. He did it. So I mean, deeds, or you could say praxis, right? Because I mean, there is the praxis with an actual product is, I guess, a referral, but with philosophy and with politics, I mean, whatever it is that you're trying to convince people of, you could just show them. You could just go do the fucking thing and let them make a decision about it, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to work this in subliminally. I'm going to make sure that it's got all the right colors."
Yeah. And we see this with the left. Like they try and make subversive memes and stuff, and it sucks. It's not good. It's not funny. No one likes it. The most popular thing on the left and with Antifa and like the anarcho communists and whoever is just taking Stonetoss comics and just fucking muscling in an essay into the speech bubbles. And it just doesn't, and they don't get it. And then you'll see, I've seen clips of people, the new trend now, because Stonetoss is getting so popular, and like they're trying to take him down a peg and you can't. Every time you try to take him down a peg, you grant him more pegs. You keep pegging him. No, you don't. You do not keep pegging Stonetoss.
He's pegging
Take that
you.
back.
He's pegging you.
He's pegging me. Oh man, if Stonetoss was a chick, what?
Holy shit.
Are we ready? Are we ready for that?
Are we ready for the future where Stonetoss is a Puerto Rican chick?
Yeah. Probably. Like, and then like maybe, and then would you? Yeah, poof, fucking. I have no words. I've got no words. But yeah, this is not just the Stonetoss fun hour. Man, my brain just went to shit in
That's
2
all right.
seconds. I'm trying to find words. Nah. Well, actually, I was going to say, in terms of in the context of advertising, an interesting way to look at it, and I tell this to clients to try and wrap their heads around it, because when it comes to the visual, and you see this on the right, like people have a good grasp of the power of visual communication, and I get that, but they'll say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I would say 1,000 words is worth 10 good words. And the problem is if you lean too much on the visual and you don't actually write the words and make sure to write the good words to actually deliver the message, the 1,000 words that people will fill an image with are their own words. It's very easy. You want to talk about death of the author stuff. Like if you have an image and hope that will just get the message across, it's not. This is where the propaganda part does get in. Like you do need to deliver a message, but it does need to be distilled down. It needs to be worked on. And the process of working down a big idea to a small idea to a more refined idea will reveal more about the idea of itself. It is working this out is kind of a praxeological exercise to figure out how can I make this work for someone who doesn't know as much as I do. And the process of just doing that will be enlightening to you, to anyone who's creative. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's kind of what I was thinking about too. And again, this is so much more important when the end product is a philosophy or an idea or political brand. But even with a physical product, like you said before, like physical products are sold based on selling a lifestyle, and that's part of this. That rather than like, okay, in 1890, right, you'd have a text ad in an oldie newspaper that just described in Times New Roman font the features of the product and then told you the price and where you could buy it, right? And then you got into photos. The photo would be of the product in 1930. And then maybe in 1950, you might have a photo of the product and then a well-dressed man using the product. And now
Yeah.
you don't even show the fucking product. Maybe the product is a service. It's an app now. And you show this man, maybe he's black and he has a white girlfriend and he has a nice car and he's doing all of these things and there's just subtle shit in the room. But the point is, like you said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. The reason that that's valuable for as a physical product is like what I was saying earlier, that this prevents the marketer from having to target you directly because you are going to target your fucking self, right? You're going to get what you need to get out of that ad in order to buy it. And somebody else who's very different from you is going to read something completely different, which is also going to cause them to buy it because they're getting a fucking dope hit out of watching the ad. They're feeling good about themselves. And there's the 1,000 words. It's not about that a picture is literally 1,000 words from the advertiser. It's a picture causes you stupid mammal, to read 1,000 words into it. That's the magic of it, right?
And just like how everything in civilization, as is dying, good things become inverted to their sort of shadow form. This is what happened to advertising. They took these principles, and it is a mutated, inverted version. I saw, people probably know what I'm talking about. There's a car ad recently, and the entire advertisement for the car was just this high school interracial dating scenario where the white girl asks like the black kid out, and he says yes. So it's kind of like it's flipping the gender thing, and then it's a race thing. It's like, again, it's like the Stonetoss comics.
Right.
Cars? You're trying to sell cars with this?
Yeah,
But, that is because they grasp the idea that this image will be evocative, it'll be provocative, it'll get people talking. But that, and they because it's so corrupted, they will see that as it's working, but it's not, because you still need those 10 words that make this relevant and important and in chart, and it's just reflective of society. And anyway, sorry, continue.
I just want to make a bet, and I haven't seen the ad. You've seen the ad. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this ad, but I haven't seen the ad. But you're telling me that what you got out of the ad is A, there's a gender swap because the girl asked the guy out, and B, it's an interracial relationship. I'll bet you anything that if you're 56 and you watch that ad, you would notice that they have anti-lock brakes and power steering, because that's in the ad. That's in the ad, and that's what you notice. That's your 1,000 words, right? Also, if you were the wife of the 56-year-old guy, you notice they have 0% APR financing, right? That's what you would notice. It's all in there. It's all in there.
I've commented before that, when you work in this industry, you get exposed to a lot of different ads, and there are ads that I like, just traditional ads. I like David Ogilvy. He started the agency Ogilvy. It's one of the agencies that's probably the influence of Mad Men.
Yeah.
And I loved his ads because, and he's got a book called Ogilvy and Advertising. Very good book. And it's written by him and explains his whole ethos. And he wrote these very copy-heavy ads. And it would be, a lot of text. And it would be like someone talking to you. You'd write the ad like, I'm going to tell you a story about this. It was very plain, very matter of fact, and it wasn't very image-heavy compared to other ads. But it is funny to think like, and it would be about the product, and it might be about the American lifestyle. He would explain it to you as if maybe I was pitching a client on it.
Yeah,
I'm going to be straight. And it's an ad. It's very clearly an ad. It's not subversive. It's not fucking with you. And I like that. There's an honesty. If you're honest with people, they'll be on board. If you're clear that you're an ad, and you're not trying to fuck with them, not trying to do some ripping the rug out from them content marketing sort of thing, they'll be okay with it generally. But I just imagine these ads now where he's advertising a car. Imagine like, he's like, so you don't like interracial relationships? Well, let's talk about that. It's just like 5 paragraphs of like climate change. And then it's like the new VW Beetle. Like, what, huh? It would be like, take this ad and imagine a man saying it to you. Take every modern advertisement you've seen and imagine David Ogilvy, who is just white guy in a suit. Imagine a white guy in a suit. Imagine Roger Sterling from Mad Men, if you want to. If you need a visual example, or Don Draper, he's explaining it to you. Except about the product, he's explaining to you about the patriarchy or about how Black Lives Matter. And you're in that meeting listening to him, and you're like, huh? Like, strip it from all the pageantry and the colors, and just realize how hilariously insane this seems.
But at the same time, as funny as it is, he'd probably be doing a very sophisticated job of tying climate change and the patriarchy into why you should buy this car, and how only people who own this car really care about anti-racism, right?
I love it if David Ogilvy, because I can imagine an ad. Let's write an ad right now for Kia or something, and they're trying to get more black people to drive Kias. That's something that they would want to do because they're dumb. And then they just go for George Floyd. They write an ad with George Floyd's face about the Black Lives Matter, and it's about freedom. It's all that shit. They got the whiteboard of the brainstorm map. They've got all the words they want to hit and everything. But then imagine David Ogilvy divine twos. You remember George Floyd? Now imagine his face. Imagine his huge lips, his massive nose. Imagine him on the ground crying for his mother, who's actually his girlfriend. He's crying for his mama, and he's screaming. He's wriggling. He might be on drugs. Imagine that. Like, once he starts describing it factually, it removes all the artistic glimmer from it. It's like, picture George Floyd's huge monkey lips. Imagine his you remember, close your eyes. Picture his huge retard ape face.
Imagine him smiling. Imagine him frowning. Imagine him sweating from the forehead. If you can't imagine it, pull up Pornhub and have a look. You'll be able to.
I'm trying to do a Don Draper. George Floyd is an idea. I want you to imagine, close your eyes. Who is George Floyd? Who is this giant ape man in front of you right now? You're on your knees, not to pleasure him, which you should, which is what we all should, which is what America should. To worship him as a man, as an idea. Kia. And then you see the word idea morph into Kia. It's like, that's your ad. And just imagine racist David Ogilvy as Don Draper. I don't know. We kind of stumbled our way into a bit. I don't know what this is.
No, it's a good bit. I like this. I like Ogilvy George Floyd Kia ad. That's good.